Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Palestinian activist and journalist Basel Adra. He has co-written a piece with Yuval Abraham in The Nation entitled "The Destruction of This Palestinian Community," was green-lighted by Israel's Supreme Court, and Basel, you're speaking to us from one of the 8 villages in this region called Masafer Yatta. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Will you tell us the history of the status of this area in the West Bank? It really goes back to, I mean, in addition to obviously the occupation, but specifically in 1980, a Supreme Court decision at that time.
So want to go? Yeah. So Masafer Yatta, it's in the southern occupied West Bank. It's located like in the South Hebron Hills to until the Green Light, the border of the 1948. And this area, as all the West Bank, was occupied in 1967 by the Israeli military occupation. And since then, we are fully under the control of the Israeli military occupation, and we don't choose the laws that oppose on us. We don't choose the ones that controlling us. We've been controlled all these decades by a foreign army who's doing what they want just because they can have guns and they can have tanks and they have the power to do it. So my area, Masafer Yatta, it's like about 20 Palestinian communities. Mostly the people here are farmers. The livelihood, they keep sheep, they plant olive trees, grapes, and they keep like hundreds of sheep. And they live in caves, in simple houses, and in tents. So Israel wanted to legitimize the presence of the Israeli settlements and outposts, that they are illegal for the international law, but they wanted it to be legally for their own laws, and how they want to make our presence illegal in our land, and how they want to make the presence of their own settlers is legal here. So what happened in 1981, the Israeli politician Ariel Sharon, who was the Minister of Agricultural Ministry, decided to like designated 14 of Masafer Yatta communities, like 14 out of 20, as a firing zone area, which is mean only for the Israeli military law to be there to do like military exercises in these 14 communities, which is like very direct and very clear of like violating the international law and the international human rights law to designate like 14 communities where Palestinians, indigenous people, civilians, communities are existing since hundreds of years in this land. In one day, just an Israeli politician decided to designate this whole land as a firing zone area. Actually, what he did, he said they want this like in public. At that time, they said that this land should be for the army to do military exercises, but in his secret meetings, he wrote an documents that they were like released a year ago, which is mean after 40 years they released this document. He wrote very clearly that they're gonna designate Masafer Yatta as a firing zone area is to keep this land for the future for the Israeli settlements, and to prevent, as they called the Arabs, from expanding and to have this land in their hands. So what happened? Israel tried from 1981 till 1999 to put pressure through the Israeli army on the residents, mostly of the 14 communities, by demolishing their caves and preventing them to graze their sheep, doing military exercises at night by shootings here and there near the caves and near the houses, raiding the caves at night, taking the people out, doing researches of the houses. So they kept putting pressure every day in order to make the people leave this land. It didn't work actually. Until November 1999, Israel invaded these communities with a heavy military convoy, trucks, and bulldozers, and they like start putting all the things of the people inside these big trucks, and they, including also they put women and the children, and they beat up some of the men before they arrest them and kick the rest away. That day, like really, the ethnic cleanse 700 people. 700 people, Palestinians were made homeless at that day in November 1999. They took everyone out of these communities. There was some pictures from that day, and that brought some attention of the international community, international human rights organizations. So the Palestinians, after the army take them out, they tried all the time to go back. Every day they go, the soldiers just beat them up, and they arrest them, taking
Basel,
their sheep.
let me just stop you there at 1999. So at any time, so if I understand, it is easier within the context of Israeli law to designate an area to be a military exercise zone, and that became sort of like the backdoor way to both begin the process of expulsion, but also to contain as a way of controlling the area, because within the context of Israeli law, there was no other sort of like legal means.
Yes, so they are using the law of firing zone area in order to take the land away. When the army deciding that this land should be firing zone, then whatever all the Palestinians have the evidence of the land, the ownership of the land, they say it doesn't matter. The army need this land for military exercises, and you can't live in it. It is your land, but the army need this land, so you can't keep it because the soldiers need to do military exercises, and it is illegal for the international law for an occupying army to come do military exercises in an occupied territories. So what happened 6 months after this, like evacuation in 1999, the 6 months after that, the Israeli High Court gave a temporary court ruling that the Palestinians can go stay at their homes, at their land, until the final decision will come out. So the time the residents start to go back, Israel allowed the settlers to create 3 illegal outposts nearby the communities. Part of each of these outposts are actually in the firing zone area. So these settlers who living in this illegal outpost became part of the process to put pressure on the Palestinians to leave this land by committing settlers like attacks and terrorizing the communities during night and day, and preventing Palestinians to go out of the field. And if they go out, the settlers will go and attack them. The Israeli police don't arrest them. Same time, the Israeli military don't allow the Palestinians in those communities to have any water access, any electricity, and demolition process going on every week since 2000 till today, destroying, like I witnessed like hundreds of these demolitions, and like I witnessed and documenting, and it is really heartbreaking that bulldozers come easily with heavy forces to destroy the houses and schools of the Palestinians. So
what do they when they I'm sorry, when they do this, do they, I mean, I realize they don't feel that they need any justification, but within the context of the Israeli legal system, what do they say is the justification? Again, just exercises. Is that it? Or is there some other
exercises? Mostly in this, we're talking about these communities, it is like they're claiming that it is firing zone area, and people civilians can't live there. They're not just like destroying homes and schools, but they confiscated a mobile clinic twice. They confiscated lawyers' cars and journalists' cars, water tanks, and under the pretext of this is a firing zone, or like you don't have permission to build here. What I'm telling you is they are creating these military laws as they are like by force they are controlling us. They're claiming that these are laws, but we don't choose these laws. We're the people don't choose any of these laws. We're just being controlled by a foreign army. Again, I'm saying this. And this army mostly funded by the US, and doing this to us, it's so crazy that they come so easy, taking the kids out of their school and destroying the school. This happened last time in Masafer Yatta last November, when an convoy of army came at a normal morning, while the students were in their classroom, and soldiers like ran to the classrooms, slipping the doors and standing nearby, keeping the children inside, and then used stun grenades against us journalists and parents, pushing us away. The moment they throw the first stun grenade, the kids start opening the windows, scaring and running out, jumping from the windows, crying and running to their home. Moments after that, the soldiers invaded their classrooms, stealing their books and balloons and chairs and tables. And the bulldozer come in, driven by and owned by a settler who live in illegal outpost nearby, and demolish the school of these kids in a few minutes. And this was a dream of the kids, that they have a school in their village, that they could have education inside, while their parents couldn't have this education because they never had school there. So the army come again and destroy this school to prevent them. In 2019, they brought in a bulldozer from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, destroying a 25-kilometer pipe of water that just supplying water to the sheep, to the people, to the plants there. Is this our question to the world that's supporting Israel, and to the Americans especially, who's paying all this money to the Israeli military? Come to Masafer Yatta and look what the Israeli soldiers do to us. They come demolishing schools, destroying water pipes, and demolishing homes every week, demolishing water wells and sheep shelters. Does this affect anyone's security? Does destroying a school in Masafer Yatta, houses here and there, and leaving families homeless, this affect anyone security? Is nothing done here for security or for a low reason. All for belong to a land thefting. Since I born till today, what I witnessing in my life, seriously, day in and day out, only settlements and outpost expansion, and destroying our homes and schools, and preventing us from improving our life.
Basel,
Just
can you give our audience a broader sense of what it's like to live in your community in terms of clean water access and infrastructure, or what it has been like even before Israeli forces bulldozed schools and tore up the community?
So now, I mean, after the decision that was made in May 2022 of the High Court, after 22 years of legal battle, gave the green light to the Israeli occupation forces, to now that they can legally, according to their law, evacuate or ethnic cleansing 1,400 residents of Masafer Yatta. I just want to mention that what they're calling him, the judge of this court that wrote this decision about our communities and deciding for 1,400 Palestinians, he himself, as a settler living illegally in a settlement in the West Bank, which is near Ramallah. So he's writing these judgments not from the perspective of laws, it's from perspective of the settlers and settling in the West Bank and kicking away the Palestinians from the land. In this 22 years, this is what was going on always. Destroying water wells, tens of water wells were destroyed. And I'm talking about water wells, which is the wells that the communities here in Masafer Yatta digging in holes in the ground and collecting the rainwater, and then start using it in the winter. And after that, when it's finished, they start buying water tanks, which is to speak about the costs of these water tanks. That the tank want to come to Masafer Yatta really cost 7 times of the people in Tel Aviv, for example, or Jerusalem, because we are in Masafer Yatta, it's far, and soldiers at any moment can confiscate this water tank. So drivers asking for really high price to get the water. So in 2019, we created a water pipes to our communities in Masafer Yatta. 2 months later, they came like from 8 in the morning, as I mentioned, until the afternoon, destroying all these water pipes and preventing the communities to have any access to the water.
And just to be
While
clear,
we,
none of this is done under even the claim that this is a security measure on the part of Israel. It is just under the claim that this territory has been deemed to be a military exercise zone, and so there's not even a claim on behalf of Israel that it's a security issue as much as it is we need this territory for our military training, I guess.
Yes. So this is exactly, they always say, claiming that this is illegal. Anything we do illegal. I just want to mention that even these laws enforced on us by forests, we go like after we get demolition orders, we go to this like military departments asking for permissions. We pay, like we waste a lot of money, we waste a lot of time. We pay lawyers, and there's NGOs who's funding lawyers to try to get permissions for us. Always the same result, rejections of this like requests that we are applying. 98% of our requests as Palestinians getting permissions in the Israeli military departments for getting permissions for the water, for electricity, for houses, for schools are rejected. And now with the current government are 100% rejections. This is important to mention to the people. While we see like on the ground, we see the settlers who live in these illegal settlements and outposts nearby. They are like doing big farms like vineyard, cows, sheep, cherries, and all these farms getting so much water, and because they can get as much as they want water. It's just a few hundred meters away from my home, and they're getting like electricity and water, and the state facilitating for them the construction, digging roads, and they're expanding every day. This is so crazy just to be living in this reality, watching that. Like 2 years ago, actually, they like invaded the community not just next to my village, and they wanted to confiscate a small electricity generator that a family were using, building like a shelter. And while they were confiscating this generator, the family were grabbing the generator, trying to prevent the soldiers from taking it, protesting like to prevent them. The soldiers like dragging it from the other side, and ended up that one of the soldiers catch a 25-year-old Harun Abraham and shot him from in the neck. He was paralyzed for 2 years, and he died 2 months ago. While we just this family today look at the outpost nearby, which is illegal for the international law and illegal for the Israeli law, bringing bulldozers and concrete bombs and building homes, more farms, while this family can't have home and could not have a clean room to keep their paralyzed like son for 2 years. He was really suffering, and they needed to keep him in the cave, and he died after suffering from 2 years of being paralyzed. And he was just shot for having a small generator that providing electricity for the family. After he died, immediately they closed the interrogation in this case.
Basel, I mean, you've grown up in this community. I mean, what does it, as an I don't know. I mean, I think it may be somewhat obvious, but from just an emotional standpoint, not as a journalist, but as a member of this community, when what types of emotions and how do you deal with this? Because there's obviously an intent by the Israeli government that is now decades old, and it has become increasingly acute to make it as hostile of an environment for you to live in, and for your families, and for the people there, so that you choose to leave on your own, right? I mean, making it that much harder. What's involved emotionally in the context of having to deal with that?
I mean, emotionally, we're really angry about the reality that we're living in. I'm just like trying to describe for you to understand, to be live in a community that it is your land, and to see foreigners who come to just building in the hills nearby, taking your land, are free to build and to have electricity and to have like really nice like and simple life, and their goal is just to push us as Palestinians out of our land in any way, and what cost doesn't matter. But to be honest, we today, like people like me, mostly like journalists and activists who are more angry about the world, about the international community, about the US government, about the EU, who's just like like keeping condemning this. We have dozens of visits of diplomats who come. We are telling them about these stories, these realities, and all what we see that they come and do posts here and there and sending like condemnations. These are important, but this doesn't work anymore. It doesn't change anything. The reality and the facts on the ground are being changed only by the Israeli soldiers and the Israeli settlers who's destroying our life by destroying our homes and kicking us out, and settlers who creating pogroms, committing pogroms against our communities in Masafer Yatta and Jordan Valley, and expanding the settlements and taking more land and building more outposts, while the international community is almost silent about this because condemnation doesn't work, that you are doing it since decades, and they're preventing the Palestinian Authority to go to the International Criminal Court to seek our justice there. So what is the solution today? There's no political vision for our reality as a youth, as a Palestinian youth who just being stuck in this situation, that having the foreign army and foreign settlers who's taking the land and pushing us away, and on the other hand, the international community was watching this and seeing this and does not move or doing anything. Where, like, as I told you, I witnessed and documenting hundreds of these demolitions, watching children and mothers who standing nearby bulldozers that destroying their houses and just crying, and I'm just filming, feeling really powerless and feeling a lot of hate and anger about the reality that we are living in it, and watching this like world that keeping like do almost nothing, as I mentioned before.
From the perspective of, I would imagine that in terms of what you see the United States can do, it would start first with ending aid, or at the very least conditioning aid to exercise some influence over Israeli policies. What beyond that, too? Stop inhibiting the ability to go to the international tribunals. What else from your perspective?
From our perspective, us Palestinians, we do need to go to the International Criminal Court and the International Justice Court. We want to seek our justice. We want our rights. We want the judges there to really decide about our rights, and those criminals who's committing these war crimes against us should be judged and should not be traveling in the world as Bezalel Smotrich, who's an Israeli politician who's a settler himself, traveled to the US, to France, and can't speak there. He's a settler. He's like violating the international law, but they're still hosting him in the US and France, and he's committing conference talking very racist against us Palestinians, and coming back here committing this racism. No one stopping this. No one doing anything. I mean, if the US do what you just mentioned, this itself can guarantee to end the occupation that's going on since decades. But the US does not want to do anything to end the occupation, and they should. And people in the street in the US who who should move and should push their government to do something. This is why we are writing. This is why I'm talking to you, because people in the US should realize where their money go and where their money, what does their money doing to us. And I hope that this is coming soon.
Well, Basel Adra, thank you so much for your time. We will put a link, obviously, to the piece that you've co-authored with Yuval Abraham. Good luck. I hope this, your piece resonates with people, and it's long overdue that the United States use its influence. And if it's ineffective, then to simply end aid, to not support this type of thing. But Basel Adra, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.